We are all positive that we exist. We tell ourselves there is someone beneath our skin, between our ears, and behind our eyes. There is someone in there. We are the pilot of our own animation. This seems obvious to us.
But you were unsuccessful?
Obvious.
To question if we exist is almost too ridiculous to dignify. To question if we exist is nothing more than the ruminations of a madman.
You're crazy. I'm not. No, I'm not.
That is what we might tell ourselves. The fact is that I feel real. I feel there is someone stitched up deep inside this fleshy body. I may not be able to point to him, but he is in there. Somewhere. I just know it. I have thoughts, desires, and fears. I feel all those things. I have 2 degrees, 2 published novels, and a beautiful wife. All these things strike me as obviously real. But is that really the whole story? What if I've been duped? What if you have been fooled? What if we have all been tricked? What if there is more to the idea I call I than I first thought? The 19th century Danish philosopher Soren Kierkegaard also reflected upon the question of reality. He wrote, "What if everything in the world were a misunderstanding? What if laughter were really tears? What if everything is upside down? What if the world is not the way it seems? And not just the world, but our personal experience of the world." Kierkegaard might challenge us to reconsider what we have taken for granted. What does it mean to have an experience? And who is it that is experiencing an experience? These questions may seem absurd to the Western mind, but they have been under intense investigation in the East for many centuries. For some thinkers in the West, the part of us that we call I is accepted as both a reality and a curse. Norwegian philosopher Peter Zapffe wrote that, quote, "Man is the ultimate tragic being because he has learned enough about the earth to realize that the earth would be better off without the presence of humankind." And he goes on, quote, "The tragedy of a species becoming unfit for life by over-evolving one ability is not confined to humankind. Thus it is thought, for instance, that certain deer in the paleontological times succumbed as they acquired overly heavy horns. The mutations must be considered blind. They work, are thrown forth, without any contact of interest with their environment. In depressive states, the mind may be seen in the image of such an antler, in all its fantastic splendor, pinning its bearer to the ground." This pessimistic worldview is shared by Eugene Thacker, who writes, quote, "We have to entertain the possibility that there is no reason for something existing, or that the split between subject and object is only our name for something equally accidental we call knowledge, or, an even more difficult thought, that while there may be some order to the self in the cosmos, to the microcosm and macrocosm, it is an order that is absolutely indifferent to our existence, and of which we can only have a negative awareness." Zapffe and Thacker diagnose the I as an unusual cosmic event because it does not seem to line up with the rest of the universe. Zapffe characterized the I as a profound misstep in the evolutionary process. The I constantly scans and searches for meaning and purpose in the cosmos, but it often does not find it. This sometimes leads to disappointment, depression, and sometimes more extreme measures. Thacker's observation of the subject-object dichotomy is felt by almost everyone. No matter what I think about the world, there is the sense that I am in here, and everything else is out there. This is our default position, and this default position is what leads us to the barren desert of absurdity. But what if this whole subject-object dichotomy is wrong? What if the I does not exist? What if the I is a mask put on to make it appear as if we are an independent point of experience in the universe? If we were to somehow find out that there is no I floating around somewhere in our mind, it would blow apart much of Western philosophy. French philosopher Rene Descartes' legendary statement, "I think, therefore I am," would not amount to a hill of beans. What if we are wrong? We would be forced to rethink the whole of reality. While Western thinkers have spent the centuries building and refining the importance of the individual, Eastern philosophy has been doing the opposite. One idea supported by Buddhists is that the self, the part of us we identify as I, is a fiction. Although it feels real to us, it is a mental concept that the mind creates and recreates in every moment of every day. The thinking mind is a hallucination machine. It is the process of thinking that convinces us that there is an I locked somewhere deep inside this fleshy body. Buddhist, Taoist, and Vedanta teachings suggest that the I vanishes like a thin mist when the mind is at ease. That is to say, the I cannot exist apart from thought. Wei Wu Wei wrote, "Why are you unhappy? Because 99.9% of everything you think and of everything you do is for yourself. And there isn't one. We labor and struggle for an entity that does not really exist." Again, this may sound absurd and a mere flight of fancy to the Western mind, but research in neuroscience seems to support the East's view that the I is less than real. Big Think published an article in 2023 called "Eastern Philosophy Says There Is No Self. Science Agrees." The article praised the field of neuroscience, which has made big strides in mapping various parts of the brain. Scientists understand a good amount about which part of the brain is responsible for language, face processing, and the part that helps us understand the emotions of others. But there is one thing they have not been successful finding, and that is the self-centered part of the brain. Experts cannot point to a specific part of the brain and say, with confidence, that the self lives there. And it is possible that they never will. It seems that the I, or the self, is both nowhere and somewhere at the same time. But we insist that the self must exist. After all, it determines what we believe about the world. It replays our memories, and it narrates the story of our lives. This is all true to our experience. However, there is a catch. When we dream, we also sense that we are an I making our way through the dreamscape. But that I is often not in line with the I experienced when we are awake. The dreamscape does not play by the same rules of the waking world. And it is the dreamscape, the seemingly unreal world that takes over when we are asleep, that may help us understand that our so-called waking selves may be equally illusory. The ancient Taoist philosopher Zhuangzi considered this issue. He wrote, quote, "Once upon a time, I dreamt I was a butterfly, fluttering hither and thither, to all intents and purposes a butterfly. I was conscious only of my happiness as a butterfly, unaware that I was myself. Soon I awaked, and there I was, veritably myself again. Now, I do not know whether I was then a man dreaming I was a butterfly, or whether I am now a butterfly dreaming I am a man." Close quote. It may be absurd to suppose that we are really butterflies dreaming of being a human. But it is no more absurd than convincing ourselves that we are a human dreaming of being a butterfly. Zhuangzi's tale encourages us to reconsider the wise words of poet Edgar Allan Poe, who asks, "Is all that we see or seem but merely a dream within a dream?"